We love Africa, but the truth is many of us are leaving it behind. Every year, thousands of Africans' brightest minds, people like me, like you, build careers in the West and never return. We don't always see it, but this quiet exit is shaping the continent's future and not in our favor. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of They Lied About Africa. I'm your host Numa, and if nobody told you the real story, I will. In today's episode, we're talking about something that doesn't always make headlines, but quietly affects everything. Africa's brain drain. Why so many of our brightest minds are leaving, what that means for the continent's future, and most importantly, how even living in the West, we can still be a part of the solution. And as you can see, for those who are not listening to this podcast audio only, but are watching it via YouTube, we have a new setup today. I was thinking that from the previous episodes, the setup was a little technical. It felt like it was giving professor and student. And I just want this to be a conversation because it is so important that people who are our age are in these spaces having these conversations and making sure they're understanding what's going on in the world. So I thought, let's make it a little more comfortable, a little less technical, a little more conversational. So let's get into it. Now, when I say brain drain, I'm talking about something you've probably seen without even realizing it. It's when highly skilled, highly educated Africans leave the continent and don't come back. Sometimes it's for school, sometimes it's for better job opportunities, and sometimes it's because we've been told our whole lives that success only exists somewhere else. If you're a first generation African in the United States, you've seen it. Maybe your cousin moved to London and promised to visit every year, but it's been 5. Or your friend from back home got that big scholarship to a United States university and now works in New York instead of Lagos or Dakar. And we don't really think about it, but every time one of us leaves for good, Africa loses more than just a person. It loses talent. It loses leadership. It loses future that could have been built there at home. And when I talk about brain drain, I'm not talking about a handful of people here and there. I'm talking about thousands every single year leaving from every corner of the continent. It's not just one country or one field. It's across the board. We got medicine, tech, education, the arts. It's people who spent years building skills, experience, and networks in Africa, and then those skills are being used somewhere else. Now, the term drain might sound a little dramatic, but it's exactly what it is. A steady flow of talent, expertise, and energy moving out. And the thing about a drain is that you don't notice the impact right away. It's slow, it's quiet, and it keeps going until you stop to look at what's left. That's why this matters, because once you see the pattern, you start realizing just how much it's happening and how deeply it touches almost every African family, whether they live on the continent or in the diaspora. Now, let's talk about why this is happening, because on the surface, the answer feels simple. People leave because they want better opportunities, but underneath that, there's a mix of factors that have been building for decades. For some people, it starts with education, scholarships, exchange programs, or universities abroad open doors, but those doors often lead away from home, not back to it. For others, it's about work. The pay abroad can be multiples higher than what they'd get for the same role in Africa, even with the same exact qualifications. And in many cases, the infrastructure or industry they want to work in just isn't as developed at home yet. Then there's stability. Things like reliable electricity, consistent internet, safe transportation. They may seem small when you list them, but day to day, they shape where people feel they can build their lives. And we can't ignore the role of perception. Many of us growing up hearing, directly or indirectly, that making it means leaving. That success is defined by how far you can get from home and not how much you can build there. Put that all together, it's not that hard to see how many Africa's best and brightest find themselves building in the West instead of back home. And something I find interesting and constantly always ask questions about every time I'm hearing about Africa having these types of conditions, I always ask why these problems exist in the first place. And when it comes to this particular situation, these problems didn't just pop up overnight. A lot of them have roots that go way back. Africa's systems, from our schools to our economies, weren't built for us to thrive in the first place. They were designed during colonial times to send resources and, yes, even our talent out of Africa. And the crazy part is a lot of those systems never fully change. So when we see people leaving now, it's not just random. It's the result of years of being told directly or indirectly that the best opportunities are always somewhere else and will never be in Africa. Now, let's talk about the real cost of brain drain. On paper, it means fewer doctors, fewer engineers, fewer teachers, innovators working on the continent. In real life, it means a hospital ward that can't open because there aren't enough nurses. It means a startup idea that dies because the tech team is building for a company in Canada instead. It means classrooms that stay overcrowded because qualified teachers are working in other countries. And the thing about a brain drain is, it's not just about the jobs that aren't getting done. It's about the ripple effect. When the people who could create opportunities, mentor the next generation, generation or lead in their fields are not there, progress slows down. It's like trying to build a house where all your best builders are working on houses somewhere else. You can still put something together, but it's going to take way longer, cost way more, and probably won't be as strong. Let's put this into perspective. Nigerians are some of the most educated immigrant groups in the United States. More than half of Nigerian Americans over 25 have a bachelor's degree and higher. That is impressive. That's amazing, but here's the flip side. In Nigeria, there's just one doctor for every 5,000 people. Now compare that to the US, where it's about one doctor for every 300 people. A huge reason for that gap? Many of Nigeria's doctors are working overseas. In fact, it's estimated that more Nigerian doctors practice in the UK and US than in some states in Nigeria itself. And this isn't just Nigeria, by the way. We got Kenya, Ghana, South Africa. The story just repeats itself. Countries invest years and resources into training professionals only for them to leave. Imagine paying for a tree to grow, nurturing it, watching it, and then just as it's about to bear fruit, someone picks it up and plants it in their own garden. And brain drain isn't just about doctors or engineers. It's teachers, creatives, tech, talent. I told you this all in the beginning. People who could be shaping industries at home, but instead they're building them somewhere else. Think about how many Africans you met in college, your workplace, or even on social media. People doing incredible things, but far from the continent. The talent, the creativity, the energy, it's a currency. And right now, too much of it is being spent outside of Africa. The part that we don't even talk about is how normal this has started to feel. For a lot of us, success has been defined as making it out, as if the ultimate goal is to stay in the West, not to build something where our roots are. And that's not by accident, and it's not harmless. Because for so many of us, leaving Africa isn't just an option, it's the goal. We grew up hearing it in little comments at family gatherings, in the way people lit up when someone said, "My son's in Canada now," or "My daughter's in the UK. Success becomes a location, not an achievement. And when that's the standard, it's almost impossible to see brain drain as a problem, because to our parents or their relatives, it's the dream they fought for to get us out, to get us somewhere better. And for us, it's what we are told would make our lives and theirs worth the struggle. But here's the thing, when you grow up measuring success by how far you've gotten from home, you stop imagining what success at home could look like. You stop asking what your degree, your skills, your network could do there. And slowly, without even noticing, we start feeling the very cycle that keeps Africa waiting for its best talent to return. And look, I get it. The other side of the story is real. Moving abroad does come with opportunities you might never find back home. Better pay, better infrastructure, better career growth. In some fields, it's the only way to even practice what you studied. For many of us, it's not about abandoning Africa. It's about survival, right? It's about sending money back home in the form of remittances, paying for a sibling's tuition, helping your parents build that house they've been dreaming of. And that's powerful. I'll never knock it down. But here's where it gets tricky. Once you've built that life abroad, the idea of uprooting it to return home can feel impossible. You start thinking, what about my kids, my mortgage, my career track? And before you know it, what was meant to be temporary becomes permanent. And Africa's talent gap gets wider. It's like when you tell yourself you're only going to take a gap year before grad school, and suddenly 5 years have passed. You've got a lease, a job, a favorite coffee spot. Your life feels too rooted to move, which is completely valid, but except in this case, it's not just a city holding you, it's an entire country. And here's the part we don't always say out loud. The longer we stay, the harder it is to imagine fitting back in, not because we don't love home, but because the version of us that left isn't the same person anymore. Now, when we talk about the impact of this all, when enough of us leave and stay gone, it's not just about missing a few familiar faces. It's entire industries running short on the people who could grow them. It's hospitals in Ghana, like I talked about, Nigeria, or Senegal, where the patient to doctor ratio is stretched to breaking point because so many of our brightest minds are treating patients in Boston or London instead. It's tech companies in Nairobi struggling to compete globally because the coders they trained are now in Silicon Valley. And the real sting, every time we leave, we take with us years of education, often funded in part by our home countries, and we invest the returns, our labor, our creativity, our ideas somewhere else. The result is a loop that's hard to break. Africa invests in talent, the West benefits, and Africa pays the price. When you add it all up, Africa loses tens of billions of dollars every year in potential economic growth because its trained professionals are working elsewhere. And it's not just about money, it's about time. Every year that talent stays abroad, it's another year Africa waits for solutions it could already have. Think about it. How many businesses never get started because their founders are working in London? How many inventions never get built because the engineers are in Toronto? How many problems go unsolved because the people who could solve them are building someone else's dream? But But I have some news though. Brain drain isn't some unchangeable law of the universe, and reversing it doesn't mean every single African abroad has to pack up tomorrow and get on a flight back home. There are ways to bridge the gap right now, even if you're still living in the West. For the diaspora, it starts with connection. For one, mentorship. If you're in medicine, tech, business, or whatever, mentor someone back home in your field, or let them mentor you. Actually, not all the brightest minds exist in the West. The internet has made it way too easy to share skills for us not to use. Also, you don't always have to go back to work back home. Some African startups are hiring global talent to work remotely, bringing your skills directly into African industries without you moving. You could also invest in fun projects, and this doesn't mean just sending money to family in the form of remittances. I'm talking about funding African businesses, creatives, and projects the same way you'd invest in a Western stock or startup. Also, if you can, take a few months every couple of years to work on a project or train people locally. Your impact in that short time could last for decades. And for governments and local industries, it's about making coming home a real option, not just an emotional pull. That means competitive pay in critical fields like healthcare and tech, infrastructure that lets people actually do their work without constant power cuts or internet blackouts, policies that make it easier for people to bring their skills and capital back without drowning in red tape. And maybe the biggest shift of all, we have to change the definition of success. If the goal has always been leave, then staying and building something powerful becomes the new rebellion. Because the truth is, the talent Africa needs isn't missing, it's just scattered. And scattered things can be gathered. And look, at the end of the day, brain drain isn't just about people leaving Africa, it's about what we choose to do with where we've landed. If you're in the diaspora, you are not powerless, you're positioned, you have access, networks, and opportunities that can flow both ways if you let them. And if you're on the continent, you're not waiting for help, you're already building, innovating, creating. The challenge is just making sure the bridges between us are strong enough for ideas, skills, and resources to move freely in both directions. Because here's the truth, no one's coming to fix Africa for us, not the governments, not the NGOs, not the headlines. It's us, the ones who know the culture, the history, the potential, who can decide whether talent flows out forever or starts flowing back in. So maybe the question isn't, should I stay or should I go? Maybe the real question is, no matter where I am, how am I staying connected? Because Africa's future isn't just written by the people who never left. It's written by every single one of us if we choose to keep writing it together. Okay, that was all on today's episode of Daylight About Africa. I think this episode in particular was a pretty quick one. I don't know, maybe I was just talking too fast. But if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with someone who may enjoy it as well. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media pages. We are on Instagram and TikTok at They Lied About Africa. There you'll see repurposed clips of some of these episodes that are turned into 31-minute clips. Also, I do get ready with me as well. I talk about things that are happening in the news. Like just recently, I talked about how Senegal is issuing e-visas for people outside of the continent in the name of reciprocity. So if you're interested in learning more about that, go on my TikTok. There's a video up there. But yeah, thank you so much for coming back. Or if this is your first time here, if you're watching via YouTube, make sure to subscribe. Okay, that is all. I'll see you in the next episode.